The backstage area of America's Got Talent buzzed with its usual storm of nerves, lights, and anxious performers rehearsing lines under their breath. Crew members rushed past with clipboards, makeup artists worked on dancers, and families huddled together whispering prayers. In the middle of all this vibrant chaos, one contestant stood quietly, observing everything with calm eyes and a soft smile. His name was Marco Reyes, a 24-year-old singer from Cebu, Philippines. Unlike the others, he carried no flashy costumes, no excessive makeup, no vocal warm-ups shouted across the hall, just a simple vintage guitar case that looked like it had lived 1,000 miles. Marco didn't crave attention, but he drew it naturally. Production staff noticed the subtle Elvis-inspired hairstyle, the neatly pressed collared shirt, and the old-school charm in the way he carried himself. He greeted every crew member with a respectful nod or a soft, "Good afternoon, pa." While other contestants exaggerated confidence, Marco walked with humility, yet something about him felt powerful, like a storm hidden behind a gentle sky. Some performers whispered among themselves, "Is that the Filipino Elvis guy? I heard he wins competitions back home." "No, bro. I heard his voice is insane." Marco tried to block out the chatter. He thought instead of his parents back home, watching the show live on a small TV, maybe gathering neighbors to watch too. He had promised them that no matter what happened, he would represent the Philippines with dignity. Before his name was called, he closed his eyes and whispered a prayer in Bisaya, "Lord, Tabangi ko. Let me bring honor to my family and my country." No one backstage knew it yet, but the quiet young man standing in the corner was about to deliver one of the most unforgettable auditions of the season, the kind that rewrites careers, breaks records, and creates legends. When the stage manager signaled Marco, he took a deep breath and walked toward the blinding entrance lights. The massive AGT stage opened before him like a world he had only dared to dream about. Thousands of audience members sat in the dark arena, buzzing with anticipation. The judges, Simon Cowell, Heidi Klum, Howie Mandel, and Sofia Vergara, watched him approach with curiosity. Marco swallowed nervously as he reached his mark. Simon leaned forward, studying him with that signature analytical gaze. Heidi smiled warmly, clearly trying to ease his nerves. Howie gave him a friendly nod. Sophia waved with excitement. "What's your name?" Simon asked. "Marco Reyes, sir," he said politely. "And where are you from?" "Cebu City, Philippines." A soft cheer erupted from parts of the crowd. "What will you be doing for us today?" Simon continued. "A tribute to Elvis Presley," Marco answered. A ripple moved through the arena, excitement from Elvis fans, doubt from others. Singing Elvis was always risky. Many tried, few impressed. Marco stood still as the stage lights shifted into a soft blue. The band prepared, but Marco held up a hand gently. He wanted to begin a cappella. The crew quickly adjusted. The silence that followed was deep, almost cinematic. Marco bowed his head slightly, just like Elvis used to do before beginning a ballad. The audience leaned in, sensing an unusual confidence behind his calm posture. Even Simon straightened in his seat, no longer skeptical but observant. At that moment, Marco wasn't just a contestant. He was a storyteller stepping into his destiny, carrying the hopes of millions of Filipinos watching from home. The stage lights glowed, the cameras focused, and in the next breath, he opened his mouth and changed everything. The first note that came out of Marco's mouth sent a visible shock through the room. It wasn't just impressive, it was haunting. A deep, rich, velvety tone echoed across the arena, so eerily close to Elvis Presley's voice that people gasped out loud. The judges' reactions were instant. Heidi's hand flew to her mouth. Howie leaned forward, eyes widening. Sophia froze with a stunned expression. But Simon's eyes turned sharp, focused, analyzing every nuance of the sound as if he had discovered something rare. Marco continued into "Can't Help Falling in Love," but this wasn't an imitation. It wasn't parody. His delivery was natural, emotional, and unbelievably controlled. He sang with the soul of a man twice his age, carrying a depth that felt lived, not practiced. The vibrato, the phrasing, the warmth in his low notes, everything felt authentically Elvis, yet authentically his own. Audience members pulled out their phones. Some wiped tears. One elderly couple held hands tightly, whispering, "It feels like he's here again." Backstage, even the busy crew stopped working just to listen. Contestants who had been practicing fell silent. Producers exchanged glances. They knew this was the kind of audition that becomes a headline. Halfway through the song, Marco hit a soft, sustained note that made every hair in the room stand. Simon whispered to Heidi, "This is unbelievable." Cameras caught the exact moment Simon realized. Marco wasn't trying to sound like Elvis, he simply did. Marco poured every emotion into the final lines, his voice trembling with sincerity. As he delivered the last note, the microphone seemed to catch not just a sound, but a feeling, nostalgia, admiration, history. Then the hall fell silent. A heartbeat later. The audience erupted into thunderous applause. Marco had delivered a performance for the ages. As the last note faded, the entire arena exploded into cheers so loud the cameras shook. People were on their feet, clapping, screaming, whistling. Marco stood frozen, overwhelmed, tears glistening in his eyes. It was the reaction every artist dreams of, but only a few ever experience. The judges rose for a standing ovation. Heidi clapped above her head, Sophia cheered loudly, and Howie grinned from ear to ear. But it was Simon, calm, steady, who prepared to speak first. When the crowd settled, Simon leaned toward his microphone and said the words that would echo across social media within hours. "Marco. I don't say this lightly. You sound exactly like Elvis Presley." The crowd exploded again. Marco covered his face, unable to contain his emotions. Simon continued, "I have heard thousands of singers. I've heard Elvis tributes, impressions, covers, but what you just did was something else entirely. This wasn't imitation. This was pure authenticity. Your tone, your control, the spirit behind your voice, it felt like Elvis himself was standing on this stage." Sophia added excitedly, "You brought magic to this whole room. It was like a time machine." Heidi said, "You made us feel something deeply beautiful. Your voice is a gift." Howie grinned and said, "It wasn't just a performance, it was a resurrection. I don't know how you did it, but you revived one of the greatest voices ever." Marco shook his head humbly, whispering, thank you so much." Then Simon paused dramatically. The entire audience held its breath. And suddenly, boom! Simon slammed the golden buzzer. Golden confetti erupted from the ceiling, raining down over Marco like a dream made visible. Marco fell to his knees, overwhelmed with joy, covering his face as tears poured down. The judges smiled proudly. The crowd roared. A Filipino singer had just made AGT history. Hours after the episode aired, Marco's audition became an online phenomenon. TikTok exploded with clips, edits, and reaction videos. YouTube comments flooded from every corner of the world: America, the Philippines, Europe, South Africa, Brazil. News outlets picked up the story immediately. Filipino Elvis shocks America's Got Talent. Simon finds the closest voice to Elvis in 30 years. A voice reborn, the Filipino singer who sounds like the king. Within 24 hours, Marco gained over 1 million new followers across social media platforms. Fans recreated his performance, vocal coaches analyzed his technique, and Elvis tribute groups declared him the most authentic modern voice they had ever heard. In the Philippines, local TV stations played his audition on repeat. His hometown of Cebu erupted in pride, restaurants put his performance on their screens, barangays celebrated, and even schools shared the video during assemblies. Elderly Filipino fans who grew up listening to Elvis cried while watching the young Cebuano singer revive a sound they thought they'd never hear again. Music experts discussed his impeccable tone, breath control, and emotional delivery. Some claimed he possessed the closest vocal DNA to Elvis ever recorded in modern times. Despite his sudden fame, Marco remained humble. He held live streams thanking every supporter. He mentioned his parents constantly, saying he owed everything to their sacrifices. He rehearsed every night, determined not to disappoint in the next AGT round. But above all the noise, one comment from Simon Cowell kept repeating in Marco's mind. "This is once in a decade." Marco wasn't just a viral talent, he had become a symbol of Filipino excellence, proving once again that world-class voices rise from every island of the Philippines. His AGT journey had only begun, but his legend had already started.